What used to be this thing where two YouTubers who absolutely hated each other hopped into the ring to duke it out has now turned into this thing where two washed up clowns hop in the ring for a quick check. People are tired of influencer boxing, and here's why. The history. Note, this is going to be a very rough timeline, so bear with me. Now, to really understand why so many people are so fed up, I feel like we should go all the way back to August 1st, 2017, or what's known as the first YouTube boxing match. Joe Weller versus Malfoy, aka Theo Baker. Now, this wasn't one of those matches that was held in an arena with thousands of fans surrounding the ring chanting their favorite creator's name. This one was held in a boxing gym. It was also recorded, not live. The fight consisted of 3 rounds, ending in Joe Weller winning by decision, and after that, Joe Weller showed an Instagram comment of KSI saying that he'd fight the winner, and that sparked KSI versus Joe Weller on February 3rd, 2018. What's so significant about this fight was that it was the first ever YouTube boxing event held in an arena with a crowd and a proper undercard. The whole event was also streamed on YouTube for free. You didn't need any illegal sites. KSI ended up obliterating Joe Weller in the 3rd round, and after that, in his post-fight interview, he decided to call out the infamous Paul brothers.
Is there anything you want to say to someone out there?
Obviously, man's got this belt right now. If any YouTuber wants it, you can come get it. Jake Paul, Logan Paul, any of the Pauls, I don't care. Bring it.
After that comes Logan Paul versus KSI 1 on August 25th, 2018. The biggest UK YouTuber versus the biggest US YouTuber at the time, going toe-to-toe in the ring. You know they had to monetize that. This was also the start of Deji's infamous losing streak where he lost to Jake Paul on one of the undercards. KSI and Logan Paul ended up drawing, which sparked KSI versus Logan Paul 2 on November 9th, 2019. What's so significant about this fight was that not only is it the 2 biggest YouTubers in the ring once again, but the undercard had mainly pros fighting that night. The last 2 events were strictly YouTubers on the undercard, but this event there were no YouTubers at all except for the main event, Logan Paul versus KSI 2. So this fight was considered mainstream on the boxing end and the YouTube end. KSI ended up winning by split decision, and guess what happens next? KSI versus Jake Paul. I'm joking. KSI goes back to focusing on music, while Logan Paul goes back to focusing on vlogs and podcasting, but we do get a fight in early 2020, January 30th to be exact, Jake Paul versus Nissan Gibb. And this is where the Jake Paul reign starts to begin. Jake Paul beats a Nissan Gibb in the 1st round in an absolutely atrocious fight. He then goes on to fight the retired NBA player Nate Robinson on November 28th, 2020, and we all know how this one went. He then goes on to fight the retired UFC fighter Ben Askren on April 17th, 2021, and this one was even worse. But after that, we get a little break from Jake Paul, and we get the Battle of the Platforms, which is TikTokers versus YouTubers, on June 12th, 2021. And in my opinion, this was probably one of the best influencer boxing events that has ever happened, because it felt like every single fight lived up to its hype. Jarvis's crazy knockout, Bryce Hall getting completely manhandled, and DDG getting a hard-fought win, then dropping a song the next day. It was everything the fans wanted, except for seeing Deji lose to a TikToker. That kind of hurt. But overall, the event was amazing. After that, Jake Paul comes back, and he goes on to fight another UFC fighter, Tyron Woodley, on August 29th, 2021. And obviously, Jake Paul ended up winning. Then 4 months later, Tyron Woodley and Jake Paul hop in the ring once again because Tyron wanted the rematch on December 18th, 2021. And we all know how this one went. That man had him out cold. That's like 3 knockouts by now. After this comes a UK versus US boxing event on March 5th, 2022, which I thought was a pretty good event. Although Deji lost, once again, what did I really expect? I still thought some of the undercard fights were pretty entertaining, like Kenny versus Temper. I thought that was a really good fight. After this comes a Creator Clash event on May 14th, 2022, which I didn't really watch because I didn't really care for like many of the fighters on the card. But this event was for charity though, so I can't even hate. And I noticed that this event got lots of positive feedback in the comment section below when I looked at it, so I mean, I can only assume that it was probably a really good event. After this comes the return of KSI on August 27th, 2022, where he goes against Swarms and Pineda, which are 2 of the worst matches I've ever seen, not gonna lie. Both fighters were literally running from KSI the entire time, but Deji did get his first win against FuziTube at this event, so I guess it was alright. After that, Jake Paul fights another retired UFC fighter, Anderson Silva, on October 29th, 2022, and I'm pretty sure we all know how this one went. Jake Paul obviously ended up winning. After that comes the most recent event, KSI versus Temper, which I thought was one of the most underwhelming matches of all time. The knockout was fire, don't get me wrong, but you kind of knew who was going to win before this fight even started, honestly. All that being said, that's a very rough timeline of influencer boxing. There were many fights that I didn't name off because they either weren't important or because they fall into the next category, the problem with influencer boxing. Pointless fights. There are so many pointless fights when it comes to influencer boxing. Back then, it was used to settle beef with entertainment, but now it's just washed up clowns trying to get a quick pay payday. For example, Blueface versus Kane Trujillo. For y'all that don't know, Blueface is a washed up rapper who popped off back in 2018 for his offbeat music, who's now only relevant because he gets beat by his girl every other week. And Kane Trujillo is a TikToker who steals content. That's it, there's nothing more, nothing less. The problem with this fight is that there's no substance to it. Why is a rapper fighting a TikToker? It literally makes no sense. There's no storyline, there's no beef, there's no crazy skills that either of these two have, so why are they fighting? Relevancy and a quick check. That's it. Another example would be John Gabbana, aka Boonk Gang, versus Supreme Patty. Now, if you don't know who these two are, basically one used to steal things on IG, but he turned his life around, and the other used to squirt lemons in his eyes and sell fake chains. That's pretty much it. He also wore a Supreme headband. Can't forget that. It's in his name. Both of these dudes came up in the IG clout era where people would do the most obnoxious things for likes and attention, and now for some reason, they both box each other. I have no idea why. I'm guessing they're fighting over who fell off the hardest, but I don't even know. Shout out to John Gabbana though for getting his life back together, but like, you can tell that this fight is a cash grab. They're just fighting for relevancy and a quick check. That's it. Unfair fights. The amount of unfair fights is unreal. A prime example would be any of the YouTubers versus Floyd Mayweather, the greatest boxer in the world. Why is he fighting a YouTuber? It doesn't make any sense at all. These fights are so bad because you can literally see the skill gap during the fight, especially during Deji versus Mayweather. You can legit see the skill gap. There were times in that fight where Floyd Mayweather was legit toying with that man Deji. It was bad. Imagine a 61-year-old black belt versus a 9-year-old white belt who just started karate because his parents got him into it. That's pretty much Deji versus Mayweather in a nutshell. Logan versus Mayweather wasn't as bad, but I still throw it under this category of unfair fights. It was pretty entertaining though, but it was obviously like, you could tell who won. There was even a time in that fight where Logan like legit got knocked out, but then Floyd held him up. Like, it was bad. Fights not living up to the hype. Imagine waiting 3 months just to see your favorite content creator throw some hands, just for the ring walk to be longer than the fight itself. It honestly sucks. In fact, I think the past 3 KSI fights weren't as impressive because they were short and the other fighters were just too underpowered. Same with some of the Jake Paul fights, especially Jake Paul versus Ben Askren. Imagine paying hard-earned money that you worked, you slaved away to get, then boom, that fight just lasts 1 minute and 30 seconds literally. Like, it sucks. But to play devil's advocate, that just might mean that KSI and Jake Paul, they might just be that good if they're knocking people out in 1 minute and 30 seconds. The good side. Now, even though this is a video about why people hate influencer boxing, I feel like I should point out some of the good sides. Number 1, it puts eyes on the whole sport of boxing. Some people may never watch a boxing match a day in their life, but if you put their favorite content creator in a ring with another well-known content creator, they're gonna watch it. In fact, that's how I became interested in boxing itself, because of KSI and Logan Paul number 2. If that fight never happened, then this video would never be made. Think about that. And I know it's the same for a lot of people. They probably got into boxing because they see KSI box. It's that simple. If it wasn't for these influencers hopping in the ring and duking it out with each other, then some people would have never given boxing a chance. Number 2, it puts eyes on content creation. Believe it or not, people don't take content creators serious. But when you put a content creator in the ring with one of the greatest boxers of all time, then people are going to look at it and be like, oh shoot, this is something that I should be paying attention to. Number 3, it's becoming a crossover. You have pro boxers going to influencer boxing, kind of like how UFC fighters went to the WWE. I actually saw a comment the other day saying how influencer boxing is like the new WWE, and I can see it. You have all these personalities that people want to see again, like Salt Poppy and Slim. Then you have these pro fighters that people also want to see again, like Pineda. It's like the perfect bridge between boxing and content creation. It's insane. So in conclusion, I don't really see anything wrong with influencer boxing, but at the same time, I can understand why people are upset. Although there are some flaws like pointless fights, fights not living up to the hype, and unfair fights, I still think influencer boxing does more good for content creation and boxing than it does bad. But hey, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Do you guys enjoy influencer boxing or do you guys completely hate it? With all that being said, this is going to be the end of the video. If you guys enjoyed this video, then I highly recommend you check out my most recent video where I talk about the many problems of TikTok. But with all that being said, thank you guys for watching. It's Cameron and I'm out.